Hi, this is Ruth Pierce, and I like to help you maximize your relationships and transform your relationships, no matter what they are, whether personal or professional, and take them to the next level. In this, in this one, we're going to be talking about Habit 4 of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And the habit 4 is think win-win. Now, last time we talked about the different types of agreements or different types of situations that you can have. We'll do a quick review of that first, and then we'll move forward. But win-win, of course, is the one you want to go to. And that's where you speak up for what is a win for you, and you work to make the win for both of you. You find out what's important for the other party, and then you work together to figure out how both of you can win. Another one is win-lose. And this is where I win and you lose. Anything that involves comparison or competition will be a win-lose. Think about that. And we've been taught that in so many of the different systems that we've been involved with, from our families to schools to teams, you name it. The next one is lose-win. And that's where I let you roll over me and get what's win for you. That one basically says that I don't have any value. I don't have any worth. It's not a good answer in most situations. And then another one is lose-lose. And this is where the person is so focused on the other person losing that they don't care if they lose too. The example that may be a little bit extreme from the book, but it gets the point across, is where there was a divorce situation and the judge ordered the husband involved to sell the assets and give half to his wife. So he had a car that was worth over $10K. He sold it for $50 and gave $25 to his ex-wife. But how much money did he get? $25. He was doing that with all his assets. So they both lost. And then another one is win all by itself. And this is one that I forgot when I first read the book, or not from since I read the book a long time ago. And that was, I'm so focused on a win and getting it I want that I don't care if you lose. I don't want you to lose necessarily, but I'm not going to go into negotiations or make sure that it's a win-win for both of us. I'm just focused on me. And then the other one is win-win or no deal. And it's saying if we can't get to a win-win, then we won't be able to do it. We'll just both back away. And that can be in personal relationships. It can be in business relationships. It can be in the whole 9 yards. And there's times that you really need to do most of them. Lose-lose, I don't think there's ever a good situation for that one. But the other ones, there are times. Like the win-lose, I think of sports, which is so important in so many people's lives. It wouldn't be the same if you didn't have a winner. But have it be the team win or the team loss, not the individuals trying to compete with each other as much. That's just my thoughts on it. But there are times you will do a lose-win, but don't make it a pattern. But when it's an issue or something, the decision that's not really that important to you, and it is to the other person, and the relationship is important to you, then you may do a lose-win. Just don't make it a pattern. So now we're going to jump in. Well, no, first of all, I'm going to give you some thought questions that came up from since our time that we had last week. But think about beliefs that you may have that are keeping you from going for a win-win. Now, these can be beliefs about yourself, that you're not worthy, to have people care about you, or it can be questions about or beliefs about the other person. And that's where trust comes in. And experiences that you've had with that relationship in the past are going to affect your beliefs. Do they really have your best interest in heart? It may be beliefs about the situation, the circumstances that you are struggling with. It could be any of those, but take a deep dive as situations come up. I mean, you can do it now proactively, which is good. But as situations come up, say, what are my beliefs in here that are keeping me from going for that win-win? Get them out in your mind. I mean, you get them out where you even know them, because a lot of times they're so subconscious that you don't even realize it yourself. Now, the second question that I came up with, is it possible for both parties to feel like it was a lose-win? Not the lose-lose, where you want the other person to lose so much that I'm willing to lose too, but where you both come away from it feeling like it was a lost win. I think there are. And I think that's where you need to get it out in the situation, talked out more, have better communication. And most of the time, or at least in my experience, it's because one of the parties, another relationship is more important. And so that win is trumping that relationship. But think about that too as you go through this. And when we were on the mastermind earlier today, we were talking about there's so many mixtures of this, and there are different scenarios. The more you get in and think about these things, the more you'll see them. But the more important the relationship is to you, the more important it is to do the win-win. Win-win has to have trust. It's going to be much easier the more trust you have in the relationship. Now we're going to talk about 5 things that make it easier to have a win-win. Some of them will go into more detail and some of them we'll just talk about it briefly. But the foundation is your character, and character is your number 1 of the 5. Now, if you're taking notes, there's 3 character traits that Stephen Covey goes into here, and this foundation is very important. First one is integrity, and he defines integrity as the value we place upon ourselves. The value we place upon ourselves. Habits 1, 2, and 3 help us develop and maintain integrity. And as we clearly identify our values and proactively organize and execute around those values on a daily basis, we will develop self-awareness and independent will by making and keeping meaningful promises and commitments. So the more you know who you are, the more you're confident in who you are, the more you have developed your life around those values that you have, then you will be making and keeping meaningful promises and commitments. And these are commitments to yourself and to other people. There's no way to go for a win in our own lives if we don't even know in a deep sense what constitutes a win. What is harmonious and in alignment with our innermost values. So, if you don't know what you value, then it's hard for to go to the win. And if we don't make and keep commitments to ourselves as well as to others, those commitments become meaningless. We know it, and others know it. And they're going to become guarded. They're not going to believe you when you say, I'm going to do something. So it's going to be very hard to get that win-win. So that's integrity, the value we place upon ourselves, and this shows in our commitments to ourselves and our commitments to other people. Know who you are and what you value. The next one is maturity. And this is used in a little bit different way on this one. So maturity is the balance between courage and consideration. And if you have a book handy, you can look at the quadrants that are there. But for the win-win, you have to have both courage and consideration to be high. And if they're both low, that's when you're going to have the lose-lose. And courage is the ability to speak up for yourself, to have a voice. And if you don't, and you have more consideration for the other person than you do for you, then you're going to end up with a lose-win. And it can be the other way around. If you have more courage to speak up for yourself, but you don't consider the other person and what they need, you're going to have a win-lose. So you want both of them to be high so you get to that win-win. To go for that win-win, you not only have to be nice, but you have to be courageous. There's sometimes you have to be tough. Otherwise, you'll have that lose-win. And then the third one, the third character trait here is abundance mentality. I know this was an eye-opener for me when I first read the book many decades ago. And it's believing that there's lots of pieces of pie out there. There's more than one pie. So I don't have to compare. I don't have to compete. And the former me was into scarcity mentality, believing there was only so much. And if somebody got more recognition or more kudos or whatever it is, it would mean less that I have. But if we can get to that mentality of believing that there's more than enough to go around, I can celebrate my own wins. I can celebrate who I am, but I also can celebrate who you are. And I'll be happy for you when you get those successes, when you get those recognitions. It's been a process over many decades, but I've really lately made intentional consideration or being intentional about it to eliminate comparison and competition from my life. And that builds more of that abundance mentality into me. The abundance mentality goes back to those private victories. It flows out of a deep inner sense of personal worth and security. In this paradigm, there's plenty out there and enough to spare for everyone. It results in sharing of prestige, of recognition, of profits, and decision making. And it opens up possibilities, options, alternatives, and creativity. And from that foundation of character, which includes integrity, maturity, and abundance mentality, then the next thing that's important is relationships. And relationships are so important in the win-win thing. Because remember, the more important the relationship is, the more important it is to get to win-win. In fact, in your most important relationships, if you don't get win-win, the relationship loses. Without trust, and that's so important in relationships, the best we can do is compromise. Without trust, we lack credibility for open, mutual learning and communication and real creativity. So you want to keep that emotional bank account, that trust account high at all times. Keep making deposits. Keep your commitments. Build the relationship. Avoid withdrawals as much as you possibly can. Because then credibility is no longer an issue. Enough deposits have been made so that you know, and I know, that we deeply respect each other. We're focused on the issues, not on personalities and positions. Because we trust each other, we're open. We can put our cards on the table. And even though we see things differently, I know that you're willing to listen with respect while I describe the young woman to you. And you know that I will treat your description of the old woman with the same respect. That goes back to that picture that he showed in the first section about the same picture. You could see the young woman or you could see the old woman. We are both committed to try to understand each other's point of view deeply and to work together for the third alternative, the synergistic solution that will be better answer for both of us. That relationship neither makes the issues any less real or important, nor eliminates the differences in perspective, but it does eliminate the negative energy that's involved. And I think this is important too, because not everybody understands what win-win means. We hear that term a lot anymore, but we don't always understand it. When you're dealing with a person who's coming from a paradigm of win-lose, the relationship is still the key. The place to focus is on your circle of influence. You make deposits in the emotional bank account through genuine courtesy, respect, and appreciation for that person and for the other point of view. You stay longer in that communication process. Sometimes that can take forever. You listen more. You listen in greater depth. You express yourself with greater courage. You aren't reactive. You go deeper inside yourself for strength of character to be proactive. You keep hammering it out until the other person begins to realize that you genuinely want the resolution to be a real win for both of you. It does talk about to remember that no deal is also an option. It's also important to realize that all decisions need to be a win-win, even when the emotional bank account is high. Again, the key is the relationship. And he tells the example there about a possible work situation where a coworker comes. He says, I know you won't like this decision. I don't have time to explain it to you, let alone get you involved. There's a good possibility you'll think it's wrong, but will you support it? And if you have an emotional bank account that's high, then often you get that support. But if you don't, then you may not. And then the next one he goes into, the third one, is agreements and working on win-win agreements. And he talks about them in different scenarios, often at work, but often at home. And I think he told the story earlier in the book about the agreement that he made with his 7-year-old son to keep the lawn green and clean. But I want to just in here go over the 5 guidelines that really create a win-win agreement. And number 1 is desired results. Don't tell them how to do it. Don't do that gopher thing, where I tell you how to get it done. I tell you what the result should be, and you figure out how you're going to do it. And then number 2 is guidelines. Tell them what's expected, what your expectations are. And 3, what resources does he have? What resources do you have to get this done? And one of the funny ones or interesting ones that with this green and clean in the yard was he even gave his son that he would be a resource. If you need help, come to me and I will help you. And 4, accountability. How is accountability going to be handled? And 5, the consequences. What's going to happen if you do a good job and what's going to happen if you don't. And another personal one that he gave was an agreement that they made with their daughter when she first learned to drive, and how her responsibilities with the family car and then what's expected. And there was a win-win agreement set up there. So you can do these in any scenario, but keep those guidelines in mind. What results do you want? What's your guidelines? What are the resources the person has? How will accountability be handled? And then the consequences, either we're doing the agreement well or not. Like with his teenage daughter, if she held up the agreement, then she got to have the car privileges. If she didn't, then she'd lose privileges. And then he goes in, he talked about management training. He had a really good example in the book about this company that had a 6-month training program, become an assistant manager, and how when they changed it to the learner was in charge, how much it shortened them and how much better they trained. But important questions to ask, he says. What are the desired results of the participants? And number 2, what are the positive consequences of completion or negative consequences of non-completion? And for management training, that's what he said, which I think you could use that for any training in the corporate world or in that environment. Win-win performance agreements focus on results, not methods. They release tremendous human potential and create higher synergy to increase the P/PC. That P/PC, don't get hung up on that. Go back to the golden eggs and the goose that produced the golden eggs. And if you remember that story, the goose would lay a golden egg every day. And the owner was so thrilled with that. But then he got greedy and he decided to cut the goose open to get all the golden eggs at one time. And there were no golden eggs. So you take that in to producing a product and versus maintaining the things that are producing the product. So I grew up I didn't grow up, but I was an HR manager for a while in a printing company. So getting the product out, the printed material was our product, and that was so important. Those are the golden eggs. But you had to maintain and do maintenance on those printing presses. You had to have downtime on them in order to do that. So we couldn't get product out then. But that was necessary to keep them running well. So that was the goose, taking care of the goose, those printing presses. Getting product out was the golden eggs. So you need that balance. You have to get product out, but you also have to take care of what produces that product. People evaluate themselves using the criteria they help to create up front. Consequences become a natural and logical result of performance rather than a reward or punishment. Financial, psychic, opportunity, and responsibility. So the consequences become a natural and logical result rather than focusing on rewards or punishment. And then the fourth one was systems. If you talk win-win, but you reward win-lose, your program will not work. You get what you reward. And if you remember the beginning of the book, he talked a lot about, or not, he wouldn't talk about, take that back. But he told the story about the manager that wanted, or the CEO that wanted his managers to cooperate with each other and help each other out. And he would preach that, or he would talk that big in their meetings. And then at the end of the meeting, he would pull the curtain back and show them who was ahead in the competition to the trip to Bermuda. So he was rewarding competition and comparison, not collaboration and cooperation. So your systems have to support win-win. And if you're in a system where it's not there, you can work within your circle of influence, but there's also times when you're going to say, I need to have a necessary ending. And only you can know when that time is. And then the fifth one is processes. And to me, it's a lot like the systems, but you work through the process of going for win-win and making sure that everything is there to do those processes of win-win. And the more important that relationship is to you, stay in the ball game. Work in the process. It may be a learning process for both you and the other party, but know that it can be done. He had some really good applications, suggestions here at the end of this chapter. So if you don't have the book, I want to read them briefly to you. But number one is think about an upcoming interaction where you will be attempting to reach an agreement or negotiate a solution. Commit to maintain a balance between courage and consideration. That's back to that maturity thing. And number two, make a list of obstacles that keep you from applying the win-win paradigm more frequently. And you're going to want to do that with your different scenarios, different relationships. Don't try to do it all at once. It'll be overwhelming. Just take a couple at a time, one at a time. Determine what could be done within your circle of influence to eliminate some of the obstacles. Number three, select a specific relationship where you would like to develop a win-win agreement. The green and clean yard, or the driving agreement with a teenage daughter, or it could be something at work. Try to put yourself in the other person's place. Write down explicitly how you think that person sees the solution. Then list from your perspective what results would constitute a win for you. Approach the other person and ask if he or she would be willing to communicate until you reach a point of agreement and a mutual beneficial solution. 4, identify 3 key relationships in your life. Give some indication of what you feel the balance is in each of the emotional bank accounts. Write down specific ways you could make deposits in each account. Deeply consider your own scripting. Is it win-lose? How does that scripting affect your interaction with other people? Or could it be lose-win? Can you identify the main source of that script? Like for me, I feel like I was brought up with lose-win, that the other person was always more important. Determine whether or not those scripts serve you well in your current reality. And no, mine don't. Try to identify a model of win-win thinking who, even in hard situations, really seek mutual benefit. Determine now to more closely watch and learn from this person's example. And with that, that's the end of habit 4, think win-win. It's a process. Take baby steps. You can't do it all at once. But with that, I'll say goodbye.